So, this episode is for every dental team member that's ever looked at yet another denial and placed it on top of the growing pile, probably like under the computer monitor, and thought, cool, I'll just go scream into the void.
Right? And that pile is full of unanswered appeals, claims stuck in purgatory, and patients who were potentially never told that they might have to pay a patient portion of their treatment.
Yeah, so today, hopefully, we're going to be breaking the cycle.
Yep, you're going to learn why denials happen, how to avoid the preventable ones, and how to handle the rest without losing your mind or your money.
Because a denial is not a disaster, it's how you respond to it. That's how it can all go sideways.
Welcome to the Truth Decay podcast, talking dollars and cents with Sara Baker and LaRae McMullen.
So let's start with what turns a denial into a disaster. And spoiler alert, it's actually not the denial itself, because I think that many offices treat the denial itself as the enemy. Like, if the insurance company says no, then that's the end of the line. Like, somehow that says something about the treatment, the decision to have the treatment. It should affect the way that you feel about the treatment or the patient. And that's absolutely not the case. The disaster is the delay, the avoidance, or the messy follow-up that follows that denial.
Right, the disaster is the just resubmit it, panic move, or worse, doing nothing at all and leaving that claim open.
It's like ghosting your revenue. When you tell the patient, we'll just resubmit it and we'll see what happens. Spoiler alert, like nothing new is going to happen other than you kicking the can down the road instead of facing the truth, right, with that patient that they may owe some money. What do people do when they're afraid of that no or of telling patients bad news? Like, in our experience, what they do is they stall, right? Like, if a patient is talking to you and they're upset and they're kind of like, I describe it as energying at you. They're like, well, why didn't you tell me this? Or, I didn't expect this. Did you expect this? I think your inclination is to go, well, let's try this, or just to kind of avoid. That's where the conversation could be happening, but you're losing that opportunity to talk about where there may be some money that you could actually be collecting in that moment.
For sure. So let's take sealants. You kind of use that as an example, right? So
Yep.
it's an easy procedure, clear clinical benefits for patients. It's a very common treatment, but they're still sometimes denied as not covered benefits and are considered to be an out of pocket expense. So let's look at two stories from two different offices.
Office A has a clear, consistent system, right? They thoroughly prep the parent. Typically, it's a kid having it, right? So they thoroughly prep the parent. Like, hey, this is recommended treatment. Here are all the reasons that we recommend it, that we've treatment planned it. However, might not be covered, right? Just FYI, or even better, your office A has a verification system, right? They have a process in place where it's been done and they know definitively whether there will be coverage or not, right? So patient portion is actually collected on the date of service. All this is explained to the parent, an explanation that we are still going to submit the claim either as a courtesy to you or because we're considered a network and we need to, report this treatment to the insurance company. But the denial comes, claim is closed immediately, right? They get that denial. Nobody freaks out. They close the claim. The statement is immediately sent to the parent, notifying the parent, hey, we got that claim back, no pay, kind of as we expected, and the final balance is due from you, and parent gets it, sees it, goes, oh yeah, we talked about that, pays. Everybody's fine, no disaster in sight.
Yeah. But let's take Office B, for example. They don't have a system, right? So there's no system in place. Parent agrees to the treatment, but they're only really told that the office is going to bill the insurance. So they're not told you might have a patient portion. They're just said, hey, we'll pay we'll bill the insurance. So maybe even the treatment plan that is printed shows some coverage, so they could read it on their printed treatment plan. But if there's no verification update to the code in that practice management software, we don't really know if that's true, right? So that means no prep was done with the parent for the potential patient portion, not even a possibility of a potential patient portion. Denial comes, panic hits, whoever's in the office doing the billing or has to tell that patient they owe money. That panic sets in. The claim sits open for weeks. They don't know what to do. They don't really want to alert the patient or the parent because they didn't tell them, right, that they have a possibility of paying. Mm-hmm. So maybe a statement is even sent at one point, but then the parent calls. They're confused. They're upset. Hey, you told me that my kid needed this. Can you resubmit this claim?
And they know it won't work. They know that they can't appeal it, but they send the claim anyway. They send it back. They say, we'll resubmit it, right? Because it kicks the can down the road. It delays that final kind of reckoning for that balance a little bit longer. It kind of makes it feel like something is being done when really, honestly, the only thing that's being done is a delay of the inevitable.
Right? That's billing busy work. It's activity, but not productivity. Just because you resent it, that doesn't mean that it's going to be revenue generating.
Exactly. And meanwhile, your practice management software shows the claim is open and unpaid. So your reports are actually lying to you, right? Like the sealant is simply not a covered insurance benefit. And there's no hope of getting insurance coverage for that claim that's open. It's rightfully a patient portion that's due.
Yeah.
But that claim not only stays open, and so it makes your insurance aging report longer, it makes your estimated from insurance, if your benefits are wrong in your system, it makes that inaccurate, but it also contributes to your AR being bigger because nobody's paying this balance, right? Like the report makes it look like it's due from the insurance kind of, but the patient or the parent still isn't being told that kind of bad final news that they are apparently unprepared for in Office B, that it's due from them, right? So honestly, possibly, this balance might even be written off at some point for treatment that was done in good faith, that everybody was happy with, that really should not be written off. It may very well be written off at some point in the future for no good reason.
Yeah. And this is when denials kind of turn into that drama that nobody really likes, right? But it didn't have to.
So this is important. A denial should always be a trigger for some kind of action. You need to note it, you need to close it, appeal it, or bill it. That's it. No other option called like, maybe someone else will deal with this.
And here's the test. If your front desk is scared to send a bill after denial, that's not a billing problem. That's a communication problem.
Yes. That means the patient was not prepared. And the team somewhere along the way didn't explain potential coverage gaps. And now we're all just kind of hoping that this denial disappears, even though the claim exists and is open in your system. And so, I guess hope in one hand and do something else in the other and see which one fills up first, right?
Yeah, but spoiler alert, it's not going to disappear. Once the balance is posted as production, it just lives there. It's due from insurance and then eventually due from the patient. So it's either getting paid or you're going to end up having to write it off.
And honestly, like this happens so often. The worst part is when the team avoids the conversation entirely. Like they just avoid it. They just book the treatment, patients in, they want the treatment. We just skip the part where they could owe something, right? Where the patient is totally down to potentially talk about this, but we just skip it because maybe it's a little uncomfortable or whatever, right? And a year later, you're writing off a balance for a sealant or something much larger because it's too awkward to send a bill to a patient a year later. I cannot tell you how many times we go into offices and we're having conversations about like how old are balances that are too old. We're talking about like now they have a solution in place where we have the time, we have the resources. We're going to reach out to patients and try to collect these balances. And we're like, okay, so where's the cutoff? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Like there's balances from 5 years ago. And it's like, how would you feel if you got a balance from 5 years ago that you potentially are like, I don't even remember that I had this, and what's it for? I didn't know I was going to owe this, right? So
that's when you lose the trust with your patients and not just the money.
The big takeaway here is denials happen, right? Denials happen. Those are not inherently the failure, right? Like getting something paid by insurance is not the same as a justification for treatment. There is treatment that is diagnosed and absolutely needed all the time that is not covered by insurance. That's not the measure that we should be using about whether or not insurance treatment is needed, right?
Right.
Denials are, again, turned into a disaster by not having properly prepared for them, ignoring them, or reacting emotionally to them, right? We see that a lot too, where you get a denial and somebody in the office, not just the doctor, but sometimes like an office manager or somebody else or anybody, a clinician, feels some type of way about that denial and not being approved for it. I said that treatment was necessary and it's not covered. That's okay. This is a procedural issue, right? Like it's not a something about you personally. This is just potentially a processing policy, right? So that's where we kind of start to go off the rails, and it needs to be looked at procedurally, not emotionally.
Sure, because we're not here to eliminate every single denial. We're here to build a system where they're handled, closed, and then they don't clog up your AR unnecessarily.
Exactly. Address the denial. Don't turn it into drama.
For sure.
So let's map out a clean, smart appeal strategy, right? Like this is what we do in our company. And so hopefully this can help somebody. So first, send a clean claim.
Yeah, a clean claim, that means you verified the insurance, you have corrected any CDT codes that might need to be corrected, you've updated a claim form. We get new claim forms every few years, so certain insurances need certain ones. So you've updated the claim form, you have the correct provider information on it, and you've only added the necessary attachments. Don't bog it down with unnecessary things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just kind of a tip to don't send like intraoral pictures with a crown just because you can. Like we highly recommend that. Save those for the appeal levels if you need to. Like those are absolutely good to have in the patient's chart, but like don't throw everything in the kitchen sink at every claim, like right out the gate. Like just don't do that. It's unnecessary.
It is unnecessary. And honestly, if you do happen to get to a point where you need an appeal, you can only appeal if you have additional information that you didn't originally send. So we like to save those IOPs for that appeal. Most of the time they're asking for radiograph evidence anyways. So it should be approved with that x-ray. And if you need to appeal, you've got those IOPs. But let's move forward. Can we talk about timing? Because claims need to go out daily or the next business day, or even if you're in a bind or the doctor needs a few days to make sure everything is being checked and approved, what their day sheets are on and everything, maybe 2 days, but it does need to be consistent. So if you're batching and sending claims only once a week, you're creating like a backlog of work, an unnecessary bottleneck with EOBs, your cash flow. It'll be a little less smooth than we want it to be. Obviously, you got bills to pay. You want that cash flow to be pretty consistent, right?
Yeah.
So consistency in your claim submission will actually make it easier for you to address anything that comes up with the insurance company.
Yeah. So submit your claims on a routine, right? Yeah. Like it has to be a routine, even if it is every 2 days, like clockwork, right? That's fine. It just has to be routine. Review your transmission reports. If you're submitting your claims electronically, look at those transmission reports as they pop up, because they're giving you good information. Claims are rejected for missing things, right? So
sometimes you could just fix it right away.
That's right.
Okay, so let's say you do get a denial and it's unappealable. What does that mean? And what should you do?
So unappealable means that the denial is something that you can't fight, right? Like you can't argue with, and really you should hopefully have expected it. So things like max benefits met, not a covered benefit of the plan. Perhaps it's even a processing policy issue for the whole carrier. Briefly, an example is like Delta of Washington, for instance, doesn't allow a D0180 with a D4910. You can't do those two together. The 180 will turn into a 120 every single time. That's a Delta-wide processing policy, right? So, when you get this denial, you should not waste time appealing, waiting, thinking about it. Like, you should hopefully have prepared for this. And honestly, you should have prepared your patient too, right? So you should close the claim. And if the total amount was not collected in the office on the date of service, which hopefully it was, because you were prepared for it, right? You were prepared for max to be met. You were prepared for this procedure to not be covered. So hopefully you collected in office, right? But let's say you didn't, and that's okay. The patient should be prepared for this, and you should not be afraid. There should be no fear in you, in your tummy, to make that final statement, generate it, and immediately send it, right? Like ASAP, don't delay.
Yeah. So let's say you get a denial and it is appealable. Something like a dental consultant has determined that this treatment doesn't meet criteria. I mean, that's pretty generic, but we see that one a lot, right? So great. Let's try to appeal this, right? So first appeal, add whatever you have in the chart that would be appropriate to substantiate the treatment. That's where we're talking about those IOPs, perio charting. If you didn't send it, I mean, obviously if you're doing SRP, you're going to send that from the get-go. But anything you haven't sent before, IOPs, perio charting, detailed clinical notes, specifically your best friend. Those detailed clinical notes are your best friend.
Yes.
So you have to send new information, like I said before, with each appeal. You can't send the same information that you sent with the original submission and think that that's going to work. That's not actually an appeal. That's a resubmission. So this is why we recommend not sending everything you have with that original claim.
Yeah, exactly. So second appeal, this is your escalation. So we suggest getting a narrative from the treating doctor at this point. Because again, in theory, with the first appeal, you've sent kind of all of the things that you have in the chart available to you. So an appeal or a narrative written by the treating doctor is a new thing. And they can kind of address maybe specifically if the appeal or if the denial has wording in it that specifically says missing this or whatever, the doctor can maybe use wording that addresses, like some verbiage that would say like why actually it does, meet that criteria. So that would be very helpful. If there is more imaging available, maybe reach out to a referring doctor, or if you referred the patient to anybody, do they have imaging, right? Like just anything. If you've got anything else, that would be great. And again, you have to send new information. So you cannot just send all the stuff that you sent with that first appeal. That's why it's vital that you have at least that new narrative.
Yeah. And if it's denied again and it just still seems wrong, you then can talk to the doctor or whatever, but you can consider requesting a peer-to-peer consult. But don't waste your doctor's time unless this case has a real shot. You have to request it, and then the doctor has to set aside specific time to have a conversation with the reviewing dentist and, basically argue their point.
Yeah, and all along the way, keep in mind, like, is the insurance company saying if you're out of network, this balance can always be passed along to the patient at any given time, right? So always kind of weigh the amount of time and resources that you are putting into this appeal with what the expectations of the patient are and kind of like how hard you're fighting. Because again, ultimately, the validity of the treatment and whether the patient needed it does not hinge on whether or not the insurance company pays for it, right?
Yeah.
So like you should have had a conversation with the patient about why they needed it, and the patient should have understood that and bought into it in the first place. And so at a certain point, if you're considering doing a peer-to-peer consultation, do you need it? Right? Now, if you are in network, you do have to factor in, is the carrier allowing you to pass the cost along to the patient? Right. So if they are, okay, right, same as I just said before. But if they're not, if they are saying you have to eat the cost, that's another thing that you have to factor in too, right? Because the secret here is knowing what is actually appealable. Ultimately, if the fight is with the carrier you are considered in network with, and your contract says that they bundle procedures, like, don't fight it. You signed it. You know it. So don't fight those things.
For sure. That's, I think, one of the kind of disconnects sometimes that we see with our clients is they want to appeal it because it was necessary. That is not what the reviewing dentist is saying. They're not saying it wasn't necessary. Mm-hmm. They're saying it's not covered. It doesn't have the qualifiers for that plan to have approved them paying for it. And like Sara just said, if it's a bundle and you have done your pre-insurance verification, your specific procedure-specific insurance verification for each plan, we have a past episode on that, but if you've done that, you most of the time, now you're not always going to get it, but most of the time you'll know that already. And you as the doctor can then decide, is there some other thing that can work or some other way to, to bill this? It's got to all be legal and it's got to be real. You got to bill what you did, but you'll at least already know that you're doing this procedure, this bundle. You're not expecting to get 600 when the bundle only pays 200. You know what is happening. But end of the road is you need to do what the patient needed. You need to do the treatment that is necessary. These appeals do not mean the treatment wasn't necessary. It just means it didn't qualify for that plan to pay for it. So an example, don't appeal a $29.50 with a crown if your carrier clearly disallows it on the same day as a crown prep. You're not going to win that. You're going to waste your time and your resources.
That's the other half of the clean claims, is the patient expectations. And hopefully when you get things back from insurance, there should be very few surprises. Mm-hmm. Like, you should at least have it in your head of how these claims are going to be processed, in what way. It's not a guarantee. And again, it should not be tied to the validity of the treatment. So that's the part of the conversation I think that's missing quite a bit.
Yeah, because it's not just forms, it's communication. The treatment coordinator should have said, here's your estimate. If it's denied, you may have a balance. We'll keep you updated. But just don't let them just think that there's it's going to go to insurance and everything's going to be covered. You've got insurance, so you don't have to pay. That, like Sara said, it's not supposed to completely cover it. It's to help you out a little bit. It's a supplement.
Yes. And honestly, that one sentence that you said, like, here's your estimate, and like, if it's denied, you may have a balance, that shifts the entire kind of perspective and tone about the denial. And it takes it from like, how dare you? You told me that this was everything that I was supposed to pay. It takes it to, oh yeah, they did mention that to me.
It's ethical billing. It makes collecting that balance 100 times easier. Just trust us on that. But if you get yourself in a consistent pattern, it's not going to be hard. You're not going to feel it in your tummy. You're not going to be anxious about a denial coming through, because you have pre-spoken and communicated with each patient based off of the treatment that they needed and what they could maybe expect after the treatment happens.
And real talk, like, if your team, your front desk team, the ones that are talking to patients about balances, about potential financial responsibility, about treatment plans, right? If they are not trained and comfortable with these conversations, like, that is the issue right there.
Red flag.
And like, granted, so much of what we talk about, because we do billing, right? We're not clinicians. We are talking to our front desk sisters and brothers, because no matter how clean your claims are, you could be sending the most beautiful, pristine, like chef's kiss claims. But if the patient isn't ready for those claims coming back no pay, it's going to blow up. Like that's
Yeah.
where that denial is a disaster. And when you are banking on the payment and it doesn't come, you realize that you didn't communicate clearly. And you're like, uh-oh, this is going to go bad.
Yeah, but the best part is that once your process is dialed in, you're appealing more strategically. Your appeals will automatically win more often, and your patients are happier even when they do owe money because they've been pre-prepped.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like I actually have a client that I've worked with for a long time, and I call it very lovingly that their patients are trained, right? Like it's not that they love paying money. It's just that they're not surprised by it. Right. And it's just very, very rarely that we get kickback from patients, like super angry kickback. And it's nice, it's just nice.
Yeah. I'm sure it's nice for everyone in that office.
Yeah,
too.
it is. Okay, so let's pull it all together. Denials are unavoidably part of the game. And when claims sit open, are appealed with no new info, or the patient is left in the dark, that's the disaster.
Yeah. A denial is not a dead end, but it is a fork in the road. And your systems will determine if you go forward, circle back, or just stall out.
So the wake up moment, if your team is hoping for payment, afraid to bill the patient, or resubmitting appeals without any real change, that's not a system. That's a cycle of delay.
Right. And it's avoidable. Get proactive, get the process in place, and get your team trained to own the follow through. So we're at that point again. So Sarah, why don't you run through some top takeaways for us today?
So again, denials in and of itself don't cause chaos. Your response does. You need a plan, not panic.
Yeah. Clean claims are your first step, but real revenue protection happens in how you appeal and when you don't appeal.
And ultimately talk to your patients, have a conversation with them, prep them for financial responsibility, respect them, right? Give them the respect that they deserve in preparing them for this. Surprises destroy trust and your chances of collecting on that balance. So LaRae, what are 2 action steps that our listeners can take right now?
First would be to build or review your appeal ladder. What is your protocol for your first appeal, your second appeal, and how far do you let it go? When do you stop? Write it down and make sure that everyone who handles claims in your office understands what your expectations are.
And you should be doing this anyway, but run an insurance claim aging report and review anything that is open, right? And make sure that they're all being worked. I'm not even necessarily saying to run the aging report and work every single claim. I'm saying run it and make sure that there aren't things that are super old that are just sitting there, that maybe that are sitting there because we don't know what to do with them, or we're scared to do something with them, or, maybe some of that delay that we're talking about, right? Maybe some decisions just need to be made on these and we need to start cleaning this report up, right? So run the aging report, take a look at those claims. Are there notes? Has an action been taken? If not, why? Close it, split it, escalate it, send the balance to the patient today. No more delay. Take action on these claims.
So head to the show notes to grab your downloadable appeal ladder. It's in the step-by-step for team needs.
Yeah, hopefully that's, again, what our company does. Hopefully it would make it simple for you. So that would be great. If you like what you heard today, please consider subscribing on whatever platform that you are listening to. You can email us at hello@thetruthDecayPodcast.com. Please come visit us at sddentalsolutions.com. See what we're doing, what we're up to. That would be great. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. You can also find us on LinkedIn, both Sarah and myself, and SD Dental Solutions. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook.
Thank you all again so much. We will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.